where architecture was meant to be felt, not seen. Most guests couldn't describe what the building looked like, but they remembered exactly how it made them feel. That was not an accident. To understand how a hotel could change architecture itself, we have to revisit a moment when visual spectacle reached saturation. Iconic skylines filled every city. Buildings competed for attention. Photos mattered more than experience. Architecture had become something to consume quickly, then forget. This hotel rejected that logic completely. It did not want to be photographed. It wanted to be experienced. From the outside, it barely registered. No dramatic angles. No signature silhouette. Nothing to signal importance. Guests often drove past it the first time. That confusion was intentional. The building refused to announce itself. The moment guests entered, something shifted, not visually, physically. Sound softened, light diffused, surfaces absorbed movement instead of reflecting it. The body noticed before the mind did. Shoulders dropped, breathing slowed, pace changed. This hotel was designed around sensation, not sight. Corridors narrowed slightly to slow walking. Ceilings lower where intimacy mattered, then opened suddenly to create relief. Materials were chosen for temperature and texture, not appearance. Stone stayed cool, but stayed warm. The building spoke through touch. The reveal unfolded gradually. Guests realized they were remembering moments, not images. How it felt to wake up. How silence moved through the space. How light changed throughout the day without demanding attention. There was nothing to photograph, yet everything felt memorable. The architecture did not ask to be admired. It asked to be inhabited. And once guests understood that, they stopped looking for beauty and started noticing presence. As guests spent more time inside the building, the effect deepened. They stopped orienting themselves visually. Instead, they navigated by feeling. A turn that felt quieter, a space that felt lighter, a room that invited stillness without instruction. The body learned the building before the mind caught up. The reveal continued through absence. There were no grand focal points, no dramatic staircases, no statement pieces demanding attention. When guests searched for the center of the design, they found nothing obvious. The building refused hierarchy. Every space mattered equally. This had a disarming effect. Without visual cues signaling importance, guests behaved differently. They spoke more softly. They lingered longer. They stopped performing for imaginary audiences. The hotel did not reward spectacle. It rewarded presence. Designers had removed sharp contrast intentionally. Transitions were gradual. Light shifted subtly across surfaces. Temperature changed almost imperceptibly from space to space. The building avoided shock. It favored continuity. Guests described feeling grounded, even when they could not explain why. Over time, memory behaved differently here. Visitors struggled to recall layouts or details, yet they remembered emotions vividly. Calm, focus, openness. The architecture bypassed intellect and spoke directly to the nervous system. This created an unexpected intimacy. People connected faster. Conversations deepened without effort. The building softened defenses. It did not impress guests into submission. It disarmed them through comfort that felt earned rather than imposed. But this approach carried risk. A building that disappears visually also risks being underestimated. Some guests questioned its value. They searched for features to justify the experience. They looked for icons where none existed. The tension was growing between expectation and intention, and that tension was about to surface. The conflict emerged when expectation collided with subtlety. Guests accustomed to visible luxury began to feel uncertain. If nothing stood out, what exactly were they paying for? Some searched harder. They examined finishes. They asked staff about design philosophy. They tried to convert feeling into justification. But the building resisted explanation. The buildup intensified as guests realized the discomfort was internal. Without visual hierarchy, there was no clear way to rank experiences, no obvious highlights, no moments designed to impress others later. For some, this was freeing. For others, unsettling. Luxury usually announces itself. Here it dissolved. The hotel became a quiet test. Could guests trust their own nervous system over their expectations? Could they accept an experience that refused to prove itself? Designers had anticipated this friction. They understood that architecture, which works on the body, will always be questioned by the mind. The absence of spectacle felt like a lack, until time passed. As stays lengthened, resistance softened. Guests stopped analyzing. They stopped evaluating. They simply existed within the space. The building's influence accumulated slowly. Sleep improved. Conversations slowed. Attention widened. But the real tension surfaced at departure. Guests struggled to articulate what had changed. There was no photo to point to, no feature to describe, only a sense that something essential had shifted. The emotional pressure peaked when guests realized something unsettling. They would miss the feeling, not the building. The architecture had disappeared, and in doing so, it had left a deeper imprint than any landmark ever could. The moment of reckoning was near, and it would redefine how architecture was understood. The climax arrived after guests had already left. They noticed it in ordinary places. Louder rooms felt harsher. Brighter lights felt intrusive. Sharp edges felt unnecessary. The building had recalibrated them. The realization settled slowly. Architecture does not need to be seen to be powerful. It needs to be felt. This hotel proved that memory lives in sensation, not image. What stays with us is how spaces shape our bodies and attention, not what they look like on a screen. The resolution reshaped design thinking quietly. Architects began studying nervous systems instead of trends. Materials were chosen for temperature and sound. Transitions mattered more than statements. The building had no signature style to copy, and that was the point. Its influence spread invisibly into homes, into offices, into the way people evaluated comfort. This hotel did not chase admiration. It cultivated presence. In a world obsessed with appearances, it offered something radical. Architecture that listened before it spoke. The lesson endures. When buildings disappear, people finally arrive. The deeper implication of this building is something the architects may not have fully anticipated. It demonstrated that the nervous system is an architectural critic, not the eyes, the body, and the body responds to things the conscious mind cannot name. Temperature gradients, acoustic softness, the slight narrowing of a corridor that asks you, without words, to slow down. These are not features. They are instructions delivered below the threshold of awareness. Most buildings shout their instructions visually. Look at this ceiling. Admire this view. This way to the important room. This building whispered, and whispers, it turned out, carry further than shouts. They require you to lean in, to pay attention, to become an active participant in the experience, rather than a passive observer of spectacle. That participation is where memory forms, not in witnessing, in inhabiting. The architects understood that the most powerful spaces are not the ones that take your breath away. They are the ones that return your breathing to normal, that let the body settle, that create the conditions in which you stop bracing against the environment and begin to simply exist inside it. This hotel was built for that moment. Everything else, the materials, the proportions, the gradual light, the careful transitions, was in service of it. The moment when a guest's shoulders released, when the jaw unclenched, when the pace slowed without instruction. That moment was the architecture's purpose, and the building achieved it so reliably and so invisibly that guests could not point to the cause. They could only feel the effect, which is, in the end, the highest compliment a building can receive. Not to be seen, to be felt so completely that it disappears into the experience it creates. That disappearance is not failure. It is the definition of success for a certain kind of design. The building that effaces itself in service of the person inside it is harder to make than the building that announces itself. Ego is easier than restraint. Spectacle is cheaper than precision. This hotel chose the harder path. It designed every element to serve the nervous system of the guest, not the ambition of the architect, not the portfolio of the developer. The actual human body, arriving tired, defended, and overstimulated, and needing more than anything, a space that asked nothing of it, except to be present. That is the rarest thing architecture can offer. And the rarest things, by definition, are not found everywhere, only in the places willing to disappear.